Alright, I'm back with the Destiny 2 video here at Heresy launch. I'm recording this right now because I just got kicked out of the game for server maintenance. People were wondering how I was playing at all. I did get booted out of the mission, the main mission, like halfway through, and was able to get back in, was able to do an 80-minute run of solo Nether, which is you're supposed to farm that for little bits and pieces to get to like the next story part here. I was going to check on my status, but I got kicked out. A lot of people haven't even been able to play at all. I know some people weren't able to get in because of these errors. They're like shutting things down, making a queue. I don't know. So not a great launch day. Usually things aren't this bad for launch anymore, but maybe there's just a surge of interest. Who knows? So there's kind of two things to go over in terms of first impressions here. You know, first and I guess only impressions of the initial story mission, since we're not going to be replaying that. Spoilers, 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 very, very heavy spoilers. This is a very significant story mission in the sense that you're not just returning to the Dreadnought, you know, Eris and Drifter are there fighting off stuff, as we saw in the trailer, but this giant subjugator comes out of nowhere and stabs Eris through the entire torso, where, as we know, you don't survive that if you don't have a ghost, pretty much. I mean, granted, she's got, like, hive magic and stuff, but the second half of the mission is Drifter, like, running through the Dreadnought, like, screaming, like, trying to get to Eris, and you're like, oh, he's like, oh, they've taken her down further in, like, I'm gonna get her. I'm like, okay, well, maybe she survived, but then you go down in there and kill the boss, and she's dead. She's very dead. There's some really touching scenes with Drifter, which I never thought Drifter and touching scenes would be in the same sentence. The catch here is that Eris is technically dead, but she is alive somewhere. She wakes up somewhere and takes off her mask and is laughing with her three eyes and stuff. Is this a throne world that she has? I don't know enough, I guess, at this point to say, you know, where she is. Like, I'm assuming this means, like, she's going to come back into the story and not she's just, like, permanently chilling in her hive world and we never see her again, throne world. So I'm not quite clear on what that's going to be here. It is kind of strange that Eris, one of the most famous characters in Destiny history, gets killed by a random Dread subjugator, who I don't even know if he has a name at this point. That seems a little odd as a way to go out. This is the most significant death in the game since Cade, certainly. R.I.P. Amanda Holiday, but not really. You know, the timing of this, the mechanism of this, it's a little strange, but that was a very good mission. It was very good scenes, so I really liked that a lot, and I thought it was a very strong opening here, and I'm certainly curious to see where the story goes. I think they said they're going to, like, dump a lot of, like, the stuff you can run initially, but then there are going to be story beats week to week now, which, thank God. Then we get to Nether, which is the new quote-unquote roguelike activity. Roguelike in the sense that it has two main things, where you don't regenerate health, and as you go, you get boons to boost your powers in some way. So if you've ever played a roguelike, this is how a lot of them operate. They also operate with usually one kill, you're dead, and go back to the start. That's not true here. There are revive tokens here. I played solo because it had like the icon next to it, and I figured, you know, there's exploration mode, normal mode, and then like legend mode or whatever they're calling it now. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I remember hearing about explore mode. Like, this is you go in, you kind of wander around, you kill some things. No, it's still very much the thing, and it's still very much difficult, especially solo. You know, enemies do get tougher in time, and playing here, like, I was just going all over the place with builds. Like, none of this is optimized because I went in with an arc build, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to switch to solar for restoration, I'm going to switch to void for devour. That doesn't really work. None of those really work. All of these healing sources that you think are going to be like an easy button for this have been heavily, heavily, heavily nerfed. I have not been able to find one that's like some major, major boost to your survivability. Rather, it's essentially like attrition, where you go around and collect light wells. There are pots you can shatter that give you light wells. You know, enemies will drop light wells, stuff like that. It's not a ton, and to get those light wells, you often have to expose yourself a lot. So what I found initially here is, yeah, there will be a lot of instances where you're just sort of hiding and peeking out and like throwing a grenade and it, like, but you're never gonna regen. It's like you're not gonna regen any health. So what do you do exactly? Like I'm just not quite clear on the mechanism here. Where you're playing Hades, there's like 5 guys on the board, you dance around them. Here in Destiny, there's like 12 Grim in a flock circling you, shooting you, and it often feels like sort of inescapable. Again, I think this is much more pronounced when you're solo, because if you have a team, you can you're not going to be the sole focus of being attacked by every single friggin' enemy there. But I'm just saying that like this exploration mode that's supposed to be like a little more lighthearted version was I did like an 80-minute run of it, and a lot of that is being lost because like it's not they have things on your ghost to tell you where to go, but it's not always the most clear. Also, really, really annoying is the fact that they've always had this bug where when you open a chest, it will like keep the chest icon even after you've opened the chest. And the whole point of this is like to get 24 chests at least over the course of this run, and you keep running back to old chests that you've already opened because the icon never goes away. And like this has always been kind of annoying, but like this is so annoying in this mission. This just plays so differently than like anything we've ever experienced. So like I'm going to say it's good to be original and try things. Certainly, I'll take something noticeably different and kind of interesting over, maybe another battleground or something. But whether this is good or fun or something that's going to be accessible for most, kind of normie players, I'm curious how that's going to go. A lot of people haven't even formed first impressions yet because they can't even get into the game. I don't know if people will be in the game by the time you watch this. I am very, very curious to see what everyone makes of this. The other point, I will say, it's very early in the sense that not just like you have to get used to playing it, but also, there's a lot of like upgrades and like super boons to find and like builds to figure out that are like the best for this. And so I don't think it's going to be nearly as brutal as it was just trying to solo this for the very first time. I think it'll certainly improve in time. I think it'll certainly improve with the team. I think, it won't be quite as kind of nuts as it appears now to me. I just don't know if I can get behind the no regen health thing. It's just so contrary to like the core of Destiny and how you play, and I just feel like it has to modify your play to such an obnoxious extent. Like I didn't like, depending on the era of GM, like I haven't loved GM because it was sort of just like, hiding and plinking away at enemies a lot of the time before they changed some things, and like that's why I didn't like that. This kind of feels like that, but like I just keep getting in these situations where it's like, what am I supposed to do with like 3% health and enemies surrounding me and like literally no way to heal? Like putting down a rift is giving me like 1 HP every 5 seconds, stuff like that. So maybe there's answers for these. Maybe things will, there'll be more strategies and tools to reach for over time, but this was interesting. The actual like things you do within the activity, it's different sections of the Dreadnought, many of which you will recognize, and it's like it's not all boss encounters. There are 3 boss encounters of varying difficulties. They do definitely get harder, I would say, and it's like blow up a bunch of eggs in an area and then kill enemies that spawn, and that like does one thing of damage to the Dreadnought. And then there's 2 more. There's 3 in each zone, 3 zones, so you do 9 of these total. Again, like in a normal thing, these would be very action oriented. It would be really straightforward, but here it's a lot different. And like they do spawn fewer enemies, but when your enemies are doing permanent damage to you, it's very different. And maybe that's good, and maybe, X amount of % of people really love this. It's so different. I do sort of wonder how it's going to be received. In terms of the rest of it, that's all I can kind of really comment on for now, because everything is offline. There's just, I don't know how much more story content there is after this. I don't know how far I am in even farming the things I was supposed to farm. If I go back in, I am 100% doing team mode. I don't think I'm ever going to do solo mode again unless it's something I can really only, some secret or something I can only pursue in solo mode. this seems like it just needs a patrol. Like, I don't really get why they have to like still make you do an activity instead of letting you just like roam around the dreadnought and find things and solve puzzles. That seems like something that would be more fun than also like doing this while also running the activity. It's just kind of weird, and like Leviathan didn't have that. The original Dreadnought didn't have that, so we'll see. In terms of everything else, people are starting to like find things like, oh, this is the dungeon exotic, and oh, Queenbreaker has a catalyst, and we're also not very far in the the new artifact, and that's gonna have some crazy stuff there. Also, dim is down, so like I couldn't even like get my destabilizing rounds weapons over to my warlock. So this was just sort of a shit show all around. This is not like, final judgments on anything. This is first impressions, and there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, so it's a little hard to say. But first mission was awesome. I remain somewhat skeptical about this activity, but I am appreciative that they're at least trying to do something different. So yeah, we'll see how it's received. We'll see how it goes. We'll see when I can get back into the game. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.